I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
For remaking the movie, they just got rid of the dwarves, but they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it, the disability, like we're a disability group. You just erase that whole.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing, before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Rachel Ziegler was once positioned to be Disney's next big superstar, handpicked by none other than Steven Spielberg to lead West Side Story, and then crowned the face of Disney's live-action Snow White reboot. Her rise in Hollywood looked unstoppable. It was the kind of career jump most young actresses could only dream about.
Controversy in Snow White. The dwarves have been eliminated in the live action.
Yeah.
Now it's Snow White and the 7 magical beings.
Wait, it's 7 and the magical beings?
Yeah,
They won't even
7
say
magical
and the 7
beings.
dwarves?
No, because they're not dwarves. For right now, that's the only jobs that are there.
Doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantata is the only global solution.
But here's the thing. Talent might get you in the door, but attitude can get you kicked right back out. What started as a fairy tale climb has now crashed into one of the messiest downfalls Hollywood's seen in years. Behind all the flashing cameras and red carpets, insiders are telling a much darker story. One filled with ego, entitlement, and a growing list of burned bridges on every set she touched. Quick pause. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. You know the drill. Now back to the drama.
Last week was a very big week, objectively a huge week. We had quite a few announcements. His first live-action film, which is Snow White and the Evil Queen. And that's me, I'm Snow White, which is so fun.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie. She came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far, but it wasn't.
And now, word is even Spielberg, the man who launched her career, was left so frustrated by her behavior on West Side Story, he privately vowed never to work with her again. And just when it seemed like things couldn't spiral further out of control, they did. Disney's Snow White didn't just flop. It face-planted so hard at the box office, the losses were so brutal, the studio allegedly had to slam the brakes on other projects.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
Who wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
Queen, playing the evil queen. It was pretty amazing.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
But the backlash wasn't just coming from angry fans. It was also coming from her own co-stars, crew members, and even studio executives. This is the story of how Rachel Ziegler's Hollywood fairy tale flipped into a full-blown nightmare, and how one of the greatest directors of all time may have been the first to sound the alarm. Let's rewind and see where it all allegedly began.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphor?
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Broke out with this news, and I'm very, very, very excited and looking forward.
On the set of West Side Story. Now, for most actors, getting cast in a Spielberg film is like winning the lottery. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot to learn from a master and show the world what you've got. But according to multiple sources inside the production, Ziegler didn't exactly treat it that way.
Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Insiders say Ziegler quickly built a reputation for being difficult, especially when it came to taking direction. Spielberg reportedly had a very clear vision for Maria: classic, heartfelt, staying true to the spirit of the original. But Ziegler wasn't having it. She allegedly kept pushing back hard, wanting to spin Maria through a modern lens instead.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat. Pretending like Rachel Ziegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
Part of the first, fairy tale ever told.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
Oh my God.
She argued the character needed to reflect today's ideas of empowerment and independence. Now, questioning a director isn't always a bad thing, but challenging Spielberg on his own project, that's a bold move. And according to people close to the set, it didn't go over well. The constant arguments got so disruptive, some crew members described the set as tense and exhausting. It even got to the point where Spielberg was said to be visibly irritated during key rehearsals. One insider claimed Spielberg privately told colleagues that working with Ziegler was one of the most frustrating experiences he had that entire year. And it wasn't just her on-set behavior drawing controversy. Behind closed doors, there was another brewing storm. Some studio executives were reportedly not convinced about her claims of Latina heritage and allegedly asked her to prove her background during the casting process. Let's be clear, Hollywood has a long history of mishandling representation. But what made this even messier was how badly it played out behind the scenes. Sources say repeated requests for Ziegler to confirm her background led to serious tension between her and the studio. Heated conversations allegedly broke out over whether her casting would feel authentic or just be seen as another example of Hollywood playing fast and loose with representation. And Ziegler? Instead of calming the situation down, she reportedly did the opposite, turning the drama into a public spectacle during interviews, accusing the studio of questioning her identity. Whether those accusations were fair or not, the damage was done. More drama, more ugly headlines, and way more eyes watching her every move. By the time West Side Story finally hit theaters, the behind-the-scenes chaos had almost drowned out the movie itself. But as messy as that chapter was, the real implosion was still waiting just around the corner. When Disney picked Ziegler to headline Snow White, it was supposed to be her redemption arc, a chance to put the past behind her and prove she could be a true A-list star. Instead, it became the biggest disaster of her career. The numbers don't lie. With a bloated budget rumored to be between $240 and $270 million, Snow White needed to be a smash just to break even. Instead, the movie barely dragged itself past $194.8 million worldwide, falling painfully short of what Disney needed. Disney scrambled to spin the story, blaming market conditions, blaming changing audiences, blaming everything except the real problems. But almost nobody was buying it. Industry insiders were already pointing fingers, and most of them were pointing straight at Rachel Ziegler. And honestly, it's hard to argue with them. Long before Snow White ever hit theaters, Ziegler's own words had already done serious damage. Her interviews slamming the original Snow White, calling it creepy and outdated, weren't just unpopular. They were seen as flat-out disrespectful to a beloved classic. Fans who grew up loving the 1937 film weren't just turned off. They were furious. And every new interview only made it worse. Instead of hyping up the magic and nostalgia people expected, Ziegler mocked it. She laughed off the idea of romance and fairy tales like it was some kind of joke. That attitude didn't just rub people the wrong way, it made her seem completely out of touch with the very audience she was supposed to win over. Every new soundbite from Ziegler felt like another nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, Disney executives were reportedly in panic mode. Insiders say conversations were happening way before release about whether Ziegler was even the right person to lead Disney's next era of princess films. Turns out, she wasn't. But the fallout didn't stop with Ziegler's image. The failure of Snow White sent shockwaves across Disney's entire live-action division. Projects were paused, budgets were slashed, executives were scrambling to figure out what went wrong and how to stop it from happening again. If there's one thing you never do when you're starring in a remake of a beloved classic, it's trash the original. Yet that's exactly what Rachel Ziegler did, again and again. In multiple interviews leading up to the release, Ziegler couldn't seem to help herself. Instead of celebrating the story that made Snow White iconic, she kept taking shots at it. She called the movie weird, sneered at the prince saving the princess, and even mocked the entire idea of fairy tales. One quote in particular went viral and lit a firestorm online. "She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love." It was supposed to sound empowering. Instead, it came across as smug and arrogant to millions of fans who just wanted the magic and romance they remembered. Let's be honest, nobody was showing up to Snow White to get lectured about feminism. They came for the fairy tale, the love story, the dream. Instead, they got an actress who seemed embarrassed by the project she was hired to lead. Memes exploded. YouTube critics tore her apart. TikTok creators racked up millions of views, breaking down every cocky interview she gave. The backlash was fast, brutal, and relentless. And the worst part? Ziegler didn't even try to fix it. She didn't apologize, she didn't backtrack. If anything, she doubled down, smirking through interviews like none of it mattered, even as the project, and her reputation, went up in flames. By the time Snow White finally limped into theaters, the damage was done. The backlash wasn't just coming, it had already arrived. And if you thought this was just about bad PR, buckle up, because things behind the scenes were about to get even uglier. Behind the scenes, things on the Snow White set were getting ugly. Rumors started swirling that the cast and crew were completely divided. Some team members allegedly felt caught in the crossfire, with off-camera conversations turning heated whenever politics came up. Publicly, Disney tried to keep a lid on it, separating cast members during interviews, scripting appearances to the word, doing everything they could to avoid another public blow-up. But according to insiders, it was already a mess. Some scenes had to be reshot, others were reportedly reworked or even avoided altogether just to keep tensions from boiling over. Marketing teams were in full scramble mode, desperately trying to figure out how to promote the movie without letting the political drama explode into a PR disaster. But it didn't work. Headlines about the iciness between Rachel Ziegler and co-star Ghetto started popping up well before the movie ever premiered. It was just one more disaster stacked on top of an already crumbling production. But the real fallout? It wasn't just limited to Snow White. What happened next would end up sending shockwaves through all of Disney. Rachel Ziegler walked into Hollywood with everything going for her. She had Steven Spielberg backing her. She had Disney rolling out the red carpet. She had a career path paved in gold. And yet here we are, watching one of the fastest, most spectacular downfalls in recent memory. From the alleged behind-the-scenes battles with Spielberg, to the disastrous Snow White press tour, to the political chaos that exploded off camera, Ziegler didn't just burn a few bridges. She set entire opportunities on fire. The biggest studios in the world handed her their most treasured projects. And instead of protecting them, instead of showing gratitude, she threw them under the bus. And here's the hard truth. Hollywood doesn't hand out second chances just because you're talented. It doesn't matter how many awards you've won. It doesn't matter how many standing ovations you've gotten. When you disrespect the people signing your checks, when you alienate the audiences buying the tickets, you're done. Rachel Ziegler's story isn't just about one flop. It's about what happens when ego outweighs gratitude, when controversy overshadows craft, when the star forgets that, at the end of the day, the audience always has the final say. And right now, that audience has left the building.